What does it take as a first grade detective and a forensic artist to come up with these composite sketches of, like, say, a serial rapist or a murderer where they don't have video or have any pictures? Most people don't know how much is involved with the interview process. I'd like you to speak a little bit about that.
You hit the nail on the head there, Ron. Though art is a very important part of forensic art, but when you're doing a composite sketch, the most difficult part is the interview. That's where you have to sit down with the victim or witness of a crime, and you have to interview this face out of their head. Because, as an artist, as a portrait artist or a caricature artist, you know who you're drawing. You know you're drawing a particular person, and you can kind of really grab that person from photos or the person themselves. But when you do a composite sketch, you're working from the vague memory of a victim or a witness, and you have to develop that sketch with just descriptive words. There's a lot of back and forth between you and the victim, looking at the sketch, making changes. So what we're trying to get with that composite sketch is not a portrait of the guy, but something that gets in the ballpark, gets a similarity to the suspect, so that we could develop leads that maybe law enforcement wouldn't get in the first place. One of the things I always say is, like, sort of when forensic science starts falling short, they call him the forensic artist. And once in a while, we'll pull that proverbial rabbit out of the hat. And that's really the key to being a good artist. If I'm training an artist to be a forensic artist, the first thing I have to get them to overcome is not to protect their drawing, to realize that the drawing is being created by the witness or the participant in the composite session. And you have to be willing to make changes, work with that person, get that sketch to look something like what they're remembering or trying to describe.
Now, also, too, that's an excellent analogy of what goes on in this. But also, too, when you have this day and age of videotape and everybody's on video, there's cameras all over the place. Take us back 20 years ago when cameras were a thing of the, it was the thing of the future. It really didn't exist. And if they did exist, it would be a grainy photo that you really couldn't make an ID off of. So then it was your job to take in a witness, a potential witness, and extract from them, in their eyes, you would now recreate what they are telling you about facial features and things of that nature, correct?
Sure. When I started this in the 80s, we didn't have none of the technology that we have today. We didn't even use computers for anything. No digital imagery, very little surveillance video. Once in a while you get it, it'd be grainy. But you try to use all the information you can back then, even if they brought you a grainy image.
Right.
But generally, you had to work from that witness's description. You had to work from the words of the words of description that the witnesses will say. And over the course of many years of interviewing victims and witnesses, you start learning the words they use, and you start connecting that to solutions that you may have succeeded with, years before, or with another witness. And you develop this strategy when you're first drawing from what you're hearing. They pick out things that look similar to the suspect that they're remembering from mugshots or photo references, and then a combination of what they're saying and what they're saying about these similarities in some of the mugshots they may have picked out. You start to develop a strategy on the sketch, and you lay it out. Now, you lay out a sketch in a very specific way. It's not like, I could just sit there and draw a beautiful face for them. I need to develop it slowly and get them involved in the sketch. So I'll work proportions, which is the relationship of the features to each other on the face, how they're positioned on the overall head. And then make sure the eyes should be closer together, further apart, longer nose, shorter nose, things like that. Then I develop the sketch into a characteristic stage, where I'm developing the shapes of those features. You know, what were those eyes? You know, and you hear sleepy, beady, piercing, whatever you might hear, and you have to develop a strategy how that's going to play out. So the witness is giving you that information in words. She or he has picked out things that are similar to the guy, and you're trying to connect those words to the images they picked out. But ultimately, it has to play out on the sketch, and that's where you get the uniqueness of what a forensic artist does. We're not drawing by ourselves. We're not creating a beautiful piece of artwork. What we're creating is an image of a suspect, of a victim's memory, and it's the recall memory of what they believe the guy looked like. And if we can get in the ballpark, almost is good enough in forensic art. But if we can hit a home run, that's great.
You know, a lot of the listening audience, they don't have an understanding of the different type of the forensic art that goes into you know, in a police career. But also when you talk about missing persons, and that's really what this live stream and this topic is about. As we build to approximately 350 live viewers, we're talking about these young boys that were missing from California City, Orrin and Orson West. When we talk about age progression, now I know that's a whole, you know, there's different parts of the forensic artistry, if you will. What goes into the age progression, and what do you need to be successful as an artist to come up with something that's a close age progression, or an accurate, I should say, age progression? Steve, talk about that.
Yeah, I will. Just to backtrack a little bit on you, Ron. So a forensic artist does composite sketching, which you were just talking about. And we also do something that's called facial reconstruction, which is someone who's dead, unidentified, and we reconstruct what they may have looked like when they were alive. But one of the biggest disciplines we have is what's called image modification or age progression. Very, very popular and a very useful tool. And when we do an age progression, we have an image of the person. We know who the person is. It may be a child, it may be an adult, and we need 20 years in the future or 20 years in the past. And so we're starting with a very strong image. We know who the person is. And then we take that image and we apply basic aging trends according to how much we need to age progress them. So if it's someone who's 12 and now we need to age progress them to 25, there's a certain transition that most people go through, aging trends that most people go through. And we can apply those basic aging trends. Now, if we have access to images of a family member that has also gone through that age progression, but we actually have the photos of them, we can apply some of those biological traits of a family member and incorporate that into an age progression as well. Sometimes, you know, on a cold case, let's say, where we have a suspect in mind, we know who it is, but they're gone and they've been gone for years, decades maybe, and all we have is an old mugshot of that person. But someone might say, hey, I saw this guy 10 years ago. He got real fat. So we can incorporate that into the age progression. Now, some people put on weight as they get older, but if someone says he put on a whole lot of weight, they just saw him for a moment 10 years before, and it was 10 years after that mugshot was taken, I can apply these traits into an age progression. Now, children age progressions are a little bit more difficult because we don't really know how they're going to live their life. There's biological influences on the way you're going to look, and there's environmental influences on the way you're going to look. So if you live a healthy life, you may turn out looking much better when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. If you live an unhealthy life, we know that, I would incorporate that into an age progression of someone who's a teenager now. We know they're taking drugs. It's 10 years later, and everyone's telling us that they were really going down a bad path. So we can incorporate environmental issues, trends, if we know something. If we don't, then we're working with just the basic aging trends and whatever information we can get from family history.